we are following several new developments overnight after a series of explosions in New York and New Jersey.
Good morning. Amtrak and New Jersey Transit serve tens of thousands of people every single day. There will be delays today. In fact, the station behind me just reopened. Investigators have been combing through evidence to see if there was any link between what would happen here last night and those explosions over the weekend.
That was the moment an explosive device was accidentally set off by a bomb squad robot. The blast even sent investigators ducking for cover. Officials say there were 5 devices inside the backpack, one of which was described as a pipe with wires coming out of it. Only one of the devices exploded. Chris Bolwage, the mayor of Elizabeth, says the backpack was first spotted in a trash can by 2 people sometime after 8 o'clock last night.
They found it and they walked it around the corner thinking there was something of value in it. When they realized it was too heavy and emptied it out, that's when they left the area and went to police headquarters.
With the Northeast on high alert following the other explosions this weekend, Elizabeth's mayor says the investigation will be thorough.
Tonight, the dramatic takedown.
There's a guy shooting a gun. Shots fired. Shots fired.
A bystander captures the moment gunfire erupts as police confront the suspect.
It had to be around like 15 to 20 shots.
Surveillance video captures the suspect attempting to flee, a gun in his hand. It all unfolds just 3 hours after police released this image of the suspect, 28-year-old Ahmad Khan Rahami, and sent this text alert to everyone living in New York. When mid-morning, the owner of a bar in Linden, New Jersey, arrives at work and sees a man sleeping in his hallway, he calls police. The responding officer approaches the sleeping man and recognizes the suspect from his beard.
Within a matter of seconds, the suspect fired on him. Unfortunately for us, he had his vest on, and he was hitting his vest, and so that saved him.
Officers race to the scene as the shootout intensifies. Another officer is injured in the firefight. And then this image, the suspect on the ground, injured but alive, surrounded by law enforcement. Still conscious, Rahami is placed on a stretcher, his arm bloodied and his right shoulder bandaged as he's taken by ambulance to the hospital.
A terror suspect captured after a shootout with police, but still fear, anxiety after the explosions.
Call what you want, but it's terrorism.
Commuters worried.
I was on edge.
Locals feeling more vulnerable.
It's scary to know that all of this is happening.
Questions about the man connected, his past, and our security. CBS 2 coverage continues. Terror at home.
NYPD, FBI officials, state troopers, and National Guard members are out in force, all in response to Saturday's explosion in Chelsea, leaving many in the tri-state on edge.
I was walking and there were just so many police officers, and I understand that it's necessary, but I feel like it adds to a lot of the tension in the city.
Hundreds of state troopers and National Guard members spent the day armed and ready at city transit hubs, including Grand Central, a place considered a soft target. And with the UN General Assembly meeting this week, which includes President Obama addressing the crowd for the last time, we even found Coast Guard boats on the East River.
The fear of foreign terrorists living among us may be underscored with the arrest today of Rahami, a naturalized U.S. citizen from Afghanistan, and the terror investigation into the Somali man who went on that stabbing rampage in Minnesota. While President Obama recently announced plans to allow more than 100,000 refugees into the U.S. in 2017 and plans to push more countries to take in Syrian refugees this week at the United Nations. A new Homeland Security Inspector General's report tonight states that hundreds of individuals who were ordered deported were actually granted U.S. citizenship.
New report by the Inspector General at the Department of Homeland Security finds the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or CIS, improperly granted citizenship to 1,029 foreigners from countries of concern or with high rates of immigration fraud, individuals who had already had a final deportation order issued against them under another identity. But it gets worse. The DHS Inspector General finds one of these newly naturalized citizens using a false identity has become a law enforcement official official here. 3 of them have obtained some form of security clearance. 2 enjoy access to secure areas at commercial airports, and 1 has access to secure areas at maritime facilities.
Pope Francis has encouraged Europeans to welcome in refugees. He says it's, quote, our greatest security against hateful acts of terrorism. He made the comments to alumni of Jesuit schools at a refugee conference in Europe. The Pope said, quote, I encourage you to welcome refugees into your homes and communities so that their first experience of Europe is not the traumatic experience of sleeping on cold streets, but one of warm welcome.
Refugees and migrants are not to be seen a burden. They offer great potential if only we unlock it.
The New York Declaration marks a political commitment of unprecedented force and resonance. It fills what has been a perennial gap in the international protection system, that of truly sharing responsibility for refugees in the spirit of the United Nations Charter.
The declaration outlines recommendations on how to take in, support and ensure the safety of refugees, migrants. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has called for cooperation to address the challenge.
The Syrian army has announced the end of the ceasefire, blaming rebels and citing over 300 violations of the agreement. Each side has accused the other of breaking the truce's terms. According to the UN Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, up to 275,000 people remain trapped in eastern Aleppo without food, water or medical care. US Secretary of State John Kerry's claims earlier today that aid would reach at least 8 locations now seems unlikely. Assad accused the US of flagrant aggression after an airstrike in Deir ez-Zor killed dozens of Syrian soldiers on Saturday. The US maintains the airstrike was a mistake.
A US airstrike has killed at least 8 Afghan police officers outside the capital of the Uruzgan province, according to Afghan officials today.
Well, what we're hearing is that as many as 8 policemen have been confirmed killed in Afghanistan as a result of US airstrikes. The US military command in Kabul has confirmed that its warplanes conducted an airstrike in the area, but they're insisting that it was in response to a threat. Now, it says that the forces were manning a checkpoint in the center of the country. We understand that the 8 were killed in 2 separate strikes, that in the first strike, 1 person was killed, and then when the first responders were busy with the injured, it was when the second strike happened, killing at least 7 more. We also understand that the police were battling with enemies who were about 800 meters from the checkpoint. Now, the United States says that it has no information on who was attacking the checkpoint. We're also hearing from Afghan officials that they are investigating the attack and communicating with the US-led coalition. But at this stage, it certainly seems as if the United States made a mistake, because essentially they're supposed to be helping the Afghan security forces.
President Bashar al-Assad has received Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister for Arab and African Affairs, Hossein Jabari Ansari, in Damascus. During their talks, Assad underlined the importance of the support provided by Iran and Russia to the Syrian people in the war on terror. He said, whenever Syria is about to make tangible progress at the battlefield or in the political arena, the nation's adversaries boost their support for terrorists. Ansari expressed Iran's determination to provide all support possible to Syria in its war against terrorism. He added that the strong relations between the 2 states are not just based on mutual interests, but also on mutual visions and political understanding, as well as awareness of the dangers threatening the region, mainly terrorism. The Iranian officials' visit comes at a crucial time in the war on Syria. The visit sends an important message to the enemies of both Syria and the Resistance Alliance that the Islamic Republic will provide whatever necessary for Syria's victory against foreign-backed terrorists and their regional and Western supporters.
It was a result that came as no surprise. The ruling United Russia Party, backed by Vladimir Putin, won the parliamentary election with more than 54% of the votes. The party now gets a constitutional majority in the State Duma, becoming even more dominant than before and ensuring more support for the Russian president than ever.
It is hard, it is difficult, but people still vote for the United Russia. I think, what does this tell us? First of all, it tells us that people see that the representatives of the United Russia, the leading political force, are really doing their best for the people.
The United Russia Party's landslide victory at this weekend's parliamentary elections, where they increased their majority to 76%, gives Vladimir Putin a clear run at a fourth term as president if he chooses to stand in 18 months' time.
Chinese and Russian naval forces have concluded their 8-day Joint Sea 2016 exercise in waters of the southern Chinese province of Guangdong. Leaders of the navies said the drills were a great success and they had achieved their goals. The exercise began last Sunday and featured Navy surface ships, submarines, fixed-wing aircraft, shipborne helicopters, Marine Corps and amphibious armored equipment. They had been doing these joint drills annually since 2012, and this was the largest one yet.
As if North Korea's recent nuclear test was not bold enough, the regime now claims to have carried out a successful ground test of a new rocket engine. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency said Tuesday that leader Kim Jong-un guided the test of a rocket engine for a new geostationary satellite at the Seohae Space Center in the west of the country. It's Kim's first military-related activity since he oversaw Pyongyang's fifth nuclear test earlier this month. The young leader has identified space development as one of the regime's most pressing tasks and says the North must develop various types of satellites to become a, quote, possessor of geostationary satellites in a couple of years to come. The engine test is seen as a follow-up measure after North Korea launched a long-range missile in February. The test has sparked speculation the regime is preparing for a long-range ballistic missile launch around the October 10th anniversary of the founding of the North's Workers' Party.
Many Israelis are wondering if they're at the beginning of a new wave of terror attacks. Another stabbing Monday morning near Jerusalem's Old City left 2 Israeli police officers seriously wounded. The Palestinian attacker was shot and critically injured. Over the weekend, there was a surge in stabbing and ramming attacks in Jerusalem and Judea, also known as the West Bank. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said with the upcoming Jewish holidays in 2 weeks, there's been an increase in terror attacks along with mortars from the Syrian civil war falling on the Golan Heights.
Ahead of the Tishrei holidays, the risk threshold has risen. The IDF and the Israel police are boosting their forces. The security forces are on heightened alert, and I will meet with them today in order to ensure that we will be ready to defend our people during this sensitive period. At the same time, our eyes are on the north. We will not allow an additional front to be opened against the State of Israel on the Golan Heights. Not there and not anywhere else.
Security forces in the Democratic Republic of Congo killed more than 50 people on Monday, according to the opposition, in a violent crackdown on anti-government demonstrators. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon has urged authorities to exercise maximum restraint as protesters in Kinshasa denounce what they see as President Joseph Kabila's bid to extend his mandate beyond the 2-term limit. We're defending our democracy, Kabila. We don't want you anymore. As violence flared, rights groups reported dozens of arrests of protesters and journalists in the capital and other cities. But denouncing a movement bent on insurrection, the Interior Minister gave a provisional death toll of 17, including 3 policemen, one of whom he said was burned alive. Calling for protests to intensify, the opposition accuses Joseph Kabila of plotting to extend his tenure by delaying elections supposed to be held in November, something his supporters deny.
The earthquake with a magnitude of 4.5 struck near Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju at 8:33 p.m. Korea time on Monday. The Korea Meteorological Administration said the quake's epicenter was about 11 kilometers from Gyeongju City, which was struck by 2 powerful earthquakes exactly a week earlier at practically the same time. The agency said the latest quake was an aftershock from last week's 5.8 magnitude earthquake, which was the strongest quake to jolt the country since records began in 1978. Since then, more than 370 aftershocks have been detected, but the latest one is the strongest so far. Fire stations in Daegu and Busan, 2 cities near Gyeongju, received thousands of quake-related reports on Monday evening, while some residents in Seoul also said they felt the tremor. The Ministry of Public Safety and Security said 11 facility damages were reported and more than 14,000 calls were made to report the earthquake. However, there were no reports of injuries. The Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Corporation also says all of the country's nuclear reactors are operating as usual.
Costa Rica's Turrialba volcano sent a 4,000-meter-long plume of ash and smoke into the sky on Monday. As authorities closely monitored its activity, the country's Volcano and Earthquake Observatory and National Seismological Network said the eruption occurred at 11:30 a.m. local time and was the second of the day, after an earlier exhalation spewed ash about 1,000 meters above the crater, according to the observatory. The ash from its second, stronger eruption is reaching the country's central valley, located some 37 kilometers directly west of the colossal peak, and home to several major cities, including the capital, San Jose. Authorities decided to suspend flights at San Jose's Juan Santa Maria International Airport and the Tobias Bolanos International Airport in Bavas. Turrialba became active again some 6 days ago, with a series of eruptions that sprinkled ash on surrounding communities.
Continue our breaking weather alert coverage now in Chula Vista. 10 News reporter Matt Mendes live. Look at that. Reports of lightning strikes down in the South Bay and everywhere else here. Let's get to Matt Mendes with what you saw, Matt.
Well, Jason, Virginia, yeah, we saw lightning like crazy just on my way to work out here. It was really bad, like 10 lightning strikes in 10 minutes. But I want to show you, it is completely dark around me. That's because no one in this neighborhood has power. A lightning strike either hit this home or hit a transformer, which then sparked a fire here. The homeowner described hearing what sounded like a bomb go off. He saw some smoke and his house had caught fire, so he grabbed his fire extinguisher, put it out. The fire department came here, and now the neighborhood is just pitch black. And I want to show you video. Our 10 News Breaking News Tracker was out driving through the streets of San Diego County this morning, capturing incredible lightning video. It was going crazy. A huge bolt even set off several car alarms. There are reports of several outages, including homes on this block in this neighborhood. We're just off of Demas in the College area.
Have a look at this nasty hailstorm that rolled through Madison, Wisconsin Monday afternoon. Big hailstones in a lot of cases. Look at the leaves getting shredded up on the trees there. That's always a pretty good indication that you got some pretty bad hail that's going on. And pretty nasty wind gusts with this storm as well.
I make a fist and squeeze the tag to the top of my skin. And when I approach the device, it opens the Facebook page I set it to.
Colin Cravino has a microchip implanted in both of his hands.
Some people just look really grossed out. I put my hand up and I let them poke at it and they freak out.
Developed in the 1950s and 60s, RFID chips, short for radio frequency identification, have been used by retailers to track packages and prevent theft. Farmers use the chips to keep tabs on their livestock. Pet owners use them to identify their cats and dogs. And lately, members of the so-called body hacker movement have been implanting RFID chips under their skin, programming them to perform various tasks. RFID retailers estimate that between 30 and 50,000 people worldwide have chip implants in their bodies. German tech consultant Andreas Sjöström used his chip as a boarding pass on a recent flight from Stockholm to Paris, and to get into an airport VIP lounge. Skeptics say the implants raise privacy issues and worry that strangers could tap into the information on a chip without the owner's knowledge. Others say potential uses for the technology, such as keeping track of a patient with dementia, could pose ethical concerns. But Cravino and others see a future where technology and the human form will merge.
I think when it becomes more prevalent and there's a lot more things and options that you can do with this, that people will, opt in for that kind of augmented human sort of attitude.